Yeah, first, I would like to talk a little bit about well, the 70s for you. Um, your father was a music manager, I read. Is it true?
Yeah, I mean, mainly he kind of worked for I think his parents, you know, but the business. But he loved music, and he used to manage this English band called Bucks Fizz that won like the Eurovision Song Contest in I think the early '80s.
Yeah.
But I think it's because he loved music and he liked to hang out with musicians, and that's kind of why he did it.
And did you maybe learn some things from his work?
I think I was a bit too young to probably remember any of it. I mean, I think I definitely saw that it can get a little bit crazy. Like, you know, they're definitely always waking up in the middle of the night. Like, there are 100 people in the living room. You know, I was like a 3-year-old kid, like all these grown-up people partying. But it was fun. I thought it looked quite, it looked like a good time.
And then, well, your mother remarried to Mick Jones.
Mm-hmm.
What is your favorite, if you have any, foreigner song?
I got a lot of foreigner songs I love. I mean, Cold as Ice, Long, Long Way from Home, Fool for You Anyway. I mean, I grew up with that music, so you know, I think that, especially the production on it, you know, like the kind of a lot of people, I think the 80s tends to get a bad reputation for music because we think of like big hair and shoulder pads and people look crazy. But some of the production stuff from that I love, and the technology at that time was quite groundbreaking, and I think people use the technology to make these pretty amazing sounding records.
Can you explain what technology?
Really, it was the last era where in analog recording, like recording to tape machines, you could record like 48 tracks, and they had these new, like, say if they came out with a new drum machine, like the Lindrum, Prince would take it and he'd make Let's Go Crazy and Kiss and all these great sounds. And, you know, Nile Rodgers was using the first kind of samplers when he was producing Duran Duran with the Reflex to make clever things. Whereas my main problem with technology today is that people use technology as a shortcut or to make things easier. I think in that era, people were using technology to like, holy shit, like, sorry, the language, but holy cow, we can do this now. We can do all this stuff. Wow, we can record even more. Like when the Beatles got the first 4-track recorder, they were like, oh my God, now we can do even more crazy stuff. Now when people get new technology, they're like, have you heard this? You can fix any bad vocal with this button and it makes everybody sound like Stevie Wonder. It's like, that to me is maybe not what technology is supposed to be for.
And maybe songwriting-wise, what did you learn from Mick Jones, or were you too young maybe?
I think I was maybe a little bit young to know, but he wrote so many like big classic tunes, like I Want to Know What Love Is, Waiting for a Girl Like You, these things. My wife is always like, when are you going to write me a song like that? And it's just like, I'm sorry, I'm never going to write you a song as good as that. It's not, love songs are not my forte.
Did he share something when you recorded this album, wrote the songs for this album? Is it something that you talk about with him, maybe?
No, I think most of the lessons that I learned from him are kind of like, they're unspoken lessons. They're things that I learned from just watching. I mean, I didn't play him this album probably until it was finished, you know, and he was very proud of it. And he came when we played Saturday Night Live, and it was like, you know, I love having him there. He was a big influence on me. But I think, I don't think that there was like a time during this album where I was like looking for his input.
Well, this is your 4th solo album. The last one was released 5 years ago now. A quick thought on that album. What do you think of it if you listen to it now?
I think there's some moments that I really love, like Bang 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 and Somebody to Love Me. Those songs I'm very proud of. I think it's a little bit messy. I think at the time, sometimes because I like a lot of different genres of music, you know. I have a tendency to try and maybe fit too much stuff into my album. And maybe a little bit like coming off a very, very successful album like Version. I was kind of like, you know, my ego, oh, I can do anything, you know, just I'm gonna have fun, I'm gonna make the kind of music I wanna make and whatever, and it's gonna, people will love it. And you get a very quick wake-up call. And I think that what was really important for me on this album, maybe coming from the place of being like the underdog again and knowing that like nobody was really like super excited waiting like, when is a new Mark Ronson album coming, you know? It's like I had to come back from the point of like sort of going back a bit to nothing and knowing that I had to make this album the best album that I could make, and making it cohesive and maybe a bit more centered around musically what it's about. So I think it was, you know, it was like a little bit, it was probably necessary to come down a little bit from the success of Version to come back with this.
When did you start with this album? The first seed for this album?
Well, I spent a long time trying to, you know, going over ideas for this album and a little bit having a musical identity crisis, you know, because I was DJing these festivals, playing with people like Bauer and A-Track and Hudson Mohawk, who I love, but, you know, they make this really massive sounding like hip-hop and trap with these big drums, and I realized that that's not really my forte. Even though I love that music, I like to play it when I DJ. So it was probably about a year of just having a bit of a crisis, like what am I doing? Go to the studio every day, just having, you know, crazy writer's block. And then when I went out to Jeff Basker's studio in Venice, California, when I started to work, October 2013. And that's after a week of being there and just kind of calming down and being a bit cut off from everything, because Venice is in LA, but it's pretty like, you know, it's all the way at the end of the LA, it's at the beaches. It's pretty, it's California, but it's gritty as well. Venice is quite like seedy in parts, and I was just out there and I felt cut off from all of life enough to sort of just get back to what felt honest. And the first piece of music I think I wrote that ended up on the album was the music to Summer Breaking. And that was when I had the idea to write a letter to Michael Chabon, my favorite author, to write the lyrics, because the music was a little different than what I've been doing. It was a little sleazy and a bit moody, and I wanted to have some stories on it and maybe see if I could try combining, you know, some narrative and some stories about some characters and stuff, but still over the kind of like strong like beats and the things that I like in my music.
And what did he tell you when you approached him?
So I wrote him this letter. You know, he's my favorite living author. He wrote this book, Amazing Adventures of Cavalier and Clay. He won the Pulitzer Prize, and I actually went to a book launch that he did, you know, just like a book groupie, get my book signed, and we talked for a little while there. And then, so I wrote him this letter and I said, you know, it's kind of it would be my ideal situation on this album to do something that stimulates both, you know, the mind and the body. You know, you can dance and you can feel it, you can groove with it, but there's some lyrics that make you think and make you keep coming back to it. Especially the lyrics from songs, when I think of things from the 70s, even songs as simple as like Earth, Wind and Fire, Fantasy, or September, there's still kind of eccentric concepts, you know? I didn't mean that every lyric has to be like Leonard Cohen, but I just wanted something that maybe when you hear it the first time, you don't know the whole story, so you want to listen to it again. You want to figure out what the characters are. So I decided that I thought that it would be interesting to just try it as an experiment. You know, I didn't know if it was going to work. He didn't know, but he was really into the idea. So he sent me some lyrics on the internet, and then I read them and I tried putting them to music, and then he came down to Jeff's studio in Venice and we really started to work at that point. And some songs we had to rewrite 2-3 times, you know. At first you're like, God, can we like tell like the great Michael Chabon that we don't like this line, or he needs to rewrite it or whatever. And you know, it's like anything. After the third day, everybody kind of warms up to each other, and you can get a little bit more like deep in that process and say be a bit more brutally honest.
And was it for you? Did you write the music before, or was it after a few weeks? Was it that he came up with the whole story and you wrote the music to it? Or
sometimes it was different for each song. So sometimes he would have the lyrics and then we would put them to music, or sometimes we would give him the music and have like a melody, and he would have to fit the words to the exact amount of syllables and make the melody work.
So it was the first song you wrote was Summer Breaking. What sort of feeling did you have when you wrote that song?
I don't really know. It felt like it was about somebody like young on a Friday night just bored, and when you're bored and you just want to go start a problem just because you feel like it. I don't mean like going up to people's houses with a baseball bat and bashing in the window, but just like maybe a girl who just wants to cause a little bit of trouble, riding around in cars. I think I just felt like it was a little bit about teenage ennui, and I think that it took a while to get the lyrics right because Michael wrote these lyrics that were great, but for some reason when we put them to the music, it would never work, and I had to be like, listen, I don't want to offend you or tell you what to write about, but when I heard this song in my mind, I always had this imaginary first line, and that, I think, is what the song is about. So as soon as I told him that, he was like, I get it. And then he was just like, wrote this great thing.
There's one question that I wrote down, maybe I'm a bit stupid for not knowing, but who is Saint Delilah in this song?
Delilah, I think it's... So you're in the old kitchen chair in your yard, Saint Delilah. I think it's about Delilah because she cut Samson's hair, you know, in the Bible, and she took away all his strength by cutting the hair.
Okay, so that's a metaphor. This was October, you said October 2013. Did the songs come quick after that?
Some songs came quite quick, like Heavy and Rolling, Cracking the Pearl, I Can't Lose, and then Uptown Funk, we got the demo of that when we went to Bruno's house to work one day, his studio in LA. And we got like the little seed of the idea, like the groove and maybe the first verse very quickly. But then Bruno was on tour traveling around the world, and every time we got back together to work on the song, you know, you want to get that magic back, like the first time, like, you know, this kind of feeling of like, everything's so easy the first time, and every time we were trying, you know, write the second verse, it felt forced. We couldn't get that same thing that we had, and so it took a while to really get into that zone. And there were a few times that we thought that song was just never going to happen. We were just going to be like, whew, throw it out. But we, you know, I think we all knew it was too special to just throw away, so we did work through it.
And how long did it take from the first time that you actually got together and once it was finished?
I think that was probably we started that song in the beginning of February, and I think it was over in August, so something like 6-7 months, but maybe like 10 sessions over that time.
And when did you get the feeling, well you said that you had to prove yourself again. When during the recording of the album did you think, well, now I'm getting to something that I really am proud of, and I think maybe I can come back again?
I think maybe at the end of the first trip to Memphis, you know, when Kevin came down, Kevin from Tame Impala, and we had recorded Summer Breaking, Leaving Los Feliz, Daffodils, started to get those songs, Heavy and Rolling. Even though maybe we didn't have like the smash hit like the way that it became with Uptown Funk, but I knew I had made something that was, you know, that had some depth to it, and had some nice chords and harmonic things going on, and something kind of grown up in a way, you know, and I guess most importantly something that I would want to listen to, and I could play it for my peers and be like proud and be like, hey, check this out.
Last question: how special was the success then for you, the big success of Uptown Funk?
I mean, it's incredible, you know. It's definitely beyond anything I ever imagined. It's the craziest thing ever. I never would have imagined in 1,000 years. You know, it's not like I was disappointed when the whole time I didn't have this success before, you know. I'm very proud of what the other records I put out have done, but it's great. I think it's, what's kind of great about it, even more than the actual, like, the fact it's #1, is that all these people, like, kind of love the music it's kind of my favorite music. Like, me and Bruno and Jeff can make a song that's like our favorite thing, and we're all playing it, and that's what, like, some kid who's 3 years old or 18 or 50 is super excited when it comes on in the car. And I think it's just like, that's what blows my mind.
So your next goal is writing a love song?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for your time.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.